To sum it up, just want freedom in all aspects, spiritually, mentally, financially, physically, in regards to time, my choices, all these things. But I was building these constraints around my days, thinking that structure and time blocking and all this discipline and all these things I'm learning, which are true and are great, I was doing too much. Hey, you're back. Welcome to an inside look into the mind of Josh Perry. With that being said, I'm your host, Josh Perry. I need to stop procrastinating because I want to race my motocross game, feed Cheddar, and just chill. And I need to just stop being so critical of this because probably people aren't going to be listening right now anyways. And at the beginning, so might as well just run it. And with that being said, addiction to knowledge, aka fear of not knowing enough. Now, I mentioned previously that there's been some changes in my life, some things I've been working on, some things I've been becoming aware of and recognizing and deciding to change. And I found myself getting into this trap of wanting freedom in my life. To sum it up, just want freedom in all aspects, spiritually, mentally, financially, physically, in regards to time, my choices, all these things. But I was building these constraints around my days, thinking that structure and time blocking and all this discipline and all these things I'm learning, which are true and are great, I was doing too much. And I realized that I created this addiction to knowledge, which was really covering up an insecurity of me feeling like I didn't know enough. And it was allowing me to, or was preventing me from taking action because it was keeping me paralyzed. And so I distilled it down into 5 main takeaways, which I then distilled into 5 steps that anyone can take when trying to figure out if something you see as positive is causing you more stress and more conflict, and then you're confused, and which leads you to not taking the action that you really want to be taking, and then that leaves you feeling frustrated and confused or lost, so to speak, things like that. And so the first step is uncovering the root cause. And for me, it was understanding that this fear of not knowing enough stems back to the first brain tumor diagnosis I received just after I turned 21. For those that don't know that story, I'm going to do a full episode on that one bit of the brain tumor diagnosis. Like, I'm going to go all in on that. But for those that don't know, that haven't listened to previous episodes or don't know much about who I am, and you're a new listener, welcome. I appreciate you and your time. But to summarize, I was in my 4th year riding BMX professionally in competition, and it was an off-season day. I was training, and I was trying a new variation of a trick for the first time. And ironically, I overcompensated the rotation and flip of this trick out of fear for under-rotating the rotation and flip of the trick. And it resulted in me getting ejected off my bike and hitting my head off the ground with a helmet. And the backstory to this moment was about a year, maybe a year and a couple months, I was going into the doctor's office asking for images of my brain because I was dealing with these debilitating headaches and migraines out of nowhere. Vision problems and nausea and vomiting. And every time I'd ask, they would judge me by my cover basically and say, you're healthy, you're young, you're in shape. Blood work doesn't show anything abnormal. You don't need a scan. You just have headaches. It's quite normal in today's society. Here's some pain pills. Come back to me more. And I felt like, who was I to challenge these doctors? I'm just a civilian. What do I know? I later learned, thanks to that crash, that I had a massive brain tumor taking up the left side of my brain, and that I had something internally wrong that wasn't visible to the naked eye because I looked like I was healthy. And that's what led me into my passion of discovering the roots of health being internal and the ins and the outs of that. But that's not what this podcast is about. But I discovered that the root cause of this addiction to knowledge, which is, a fear of not knowing enough, stemmed from that first moment I was diagnosed. And like I said, I was 21. I was living my dream on top of the world. And then I just got this bomb dropped on me that left me feeling fear for my life, left me feeling paralyzed and lost and confused. And the other parts of this story is my family was, about 13 hours north in Massachusetts. I'm living in North Carolina at the time. And, that led into the next point, and the main takeaway, which I distilled into a step for you, is the compound effect, and is understanding the events that built on top of one another from that root cause. And so for me, this was built off of the fear of being on my own as a teenager when I dropped out of high school to support my family, but I moved 13 hours south to North Carolina, to Greenville to be specific. And it was built on this fear of being on my own after moving as a teenager and trying to make my dream work. And that was another event that built off of that fear. The brain tumor is built off of that fear of, being on my own and fending for myself or not really knowing how to work. And that moves into step 3, which is gaining clarity. And so for me, the third takeaway of this clarity piece was the feeling of being lost, the feeling of anger, the feeling of being afraid and sad during that initial diagnosis. Like I'm a kid and I just get told that I may die one way or another from this brain tumor. And I believe that it took all of the past lingering fears of, fear of failure or fear of letting my family down, fear of being unsure how to make my dream work. And this diagnosis just magnified all of those lingering fears that I wasn't acknowledging, I wasn't looking at, but it magnified it into a real life or death fear, and a fear of not knowing what to do to save my life. And then that bled into sharing knowledge as I was learning, years after. And people were challenging me, maybe with good intention, but they were like, hey, how does that work? Or why is that so, when I was getting nutrition and things like that. And that just really, really got at me. And so it was like this snowball, this compound effect, starting from, leaving home as a child and then being diagnosed with a brain tumor, feeling lost and unknown and unsure of what to do. And then as I started learning more about how I could take care of my health, how other people could take care of their health, and the intention I had was for other people to take care of their health to prevent something that I just went through. I wanted people to not have to learn the hard way like I did. But them challenging me brought out an insecurity of me that I didn't know enough. And after some more reflection, journaling work, and meditations recently, I've discovered that stems back to my junior year of high school when I was getting ready for senior project. And I had this limiting belief or this doubt in myself that I wasn't able to accomplish it. For whatever reason it was, I just remember feeling so scared and confused about what I was going to do and if I was capable. And I just had all these doubts and these fears. But at the same time, I had this opportunity to go after my dream, which led to me dropping out of high school, which now I reflect on that. And it was almost like this insecurity. And then I saw this like way out, and it was confusing because it was also a passion and a dream of mine, an opportunity I saw, but I didn't understand below the layer, like the surface layer fear that I was escaping, and I wasn't facing that fear. And I didn't know that was going to lead into my BMX career, which I had an amazing career, did a lot of amazing things. I literally traveled around the world with some of my best friends doing something I love most in this world. But there was always that fear that I never dealt with, I never faced. And now I'm seeing that, and I'm letting go of the emotional baggage to it. Like there's a lot of work being done to release those emotions. And now that I've become aware of it, I've talked about this before, once you become the observer of the program that you've been running off of, the story or the code that you've been operating from, once you observe it and you shine a light on it, that's step 1, because you've recognized it. And then you can make a decision moving forward that's conscious of how you want to move and how you want to act and how you want to think and feel and how you want to be moving forward every moment. But back then, I made a decision unconsciously to escape the fear and to chase a dream, but it was just like this mesh of confusion. And I just saw it as like, an opportunity to live my dream. But little did I know it was actually motivated from the fear of not facing the challenge that was being presented, which was my senior project. And so step 4 is uncovering that insecurity. And for me, it was really uncovering that the addiction to learning allowed me to cover up my insecurity and fear of quote unquote not knowing enough. I felt like I wasn't able to do that. I didn't know. I felt like I didn't know enough to accomplish that project, which led into years after that of sharing information that I was passionate about, and it made me feel better about not taking massive action despite wanting to. So it was covering up this fear, and then this desire to take action in whatever way it was. There was still that limiting belief that I wasn't capable, I wasn't good enough, I didn't know enough. And by not actually I should say, by being addicted to knowledge and trying to educate myself and put more tools in my tool belt and learn more skills, it allowed me to not take action, which felt good. It was comfortable because it was quote unquote safe. Even though it wasn't desirable, it's what my body knew for so long, and it allowed me to play small. And it held me back. Like I said, it allowed me the payoff of playing small and not being seen, not being seen for who I really was, but thinking, I'm so busy and I need to know more, and I'm working so hard, it's like it's just a matter of time in order to help people. This is what I thought I had to do, and it wasn't. And now I see that. And what's really cool, as I said before, and I'm going to continue saying this, is once you uncover those insecurities, those limiting beliefs, those fears, those negative emotions, once you shine a light on them, it's going to be uncomfortable, because that's the job of the ego, is to protect you. And once you recognize and you expose these elements of yourself that you've been neglecting, and for whatever reason it was, or most of the time it's unconscious, but that's your ego trying to protect you to move forward. Once you shine a light in there, and you see, it's going to be a bumpy ride, because you have the decision to make consciously moving forward. And is this past memory, experience, limiting belief, fear, is it serving me any longer? And then you have the choice of, do I want to continue with this, or do I want a different reality? And once you make that decision and it's to change, the body does not like that, because it's been conditioned chemically and physically and mentally to this state that you've been living in, and now you want to change it. And that's the unknown. That's the unfamiliar. And that's, you're breaking these bonds that your body has made in these various ways. Like I said, chemically, spiritually, physically, mentally, and you're really derooting, if that's a word, unrooting, and really, spreading new roots. You're into new territory. And that's why 99% of the population doesn't change, because one, they don't know, two, they understand and they make the decision, and then it's hard, it's not comfortable, and they let the body signal the mind to be comfortable. By, here's a great example: you decide, I'm going to start getting up at 6, I'm going to do a morning routine, I'm going to go to the gym, all this and that, but you've never done that before. And you try to make this change, and then the alarm goes off, and your body's like, nah, hit snooze, man. Go back to bed. It's so comfortable. It's warm. You can just do it later or tomorrow. That's a prime example of fear and the ego stepping in to protect you from the unknown, even though doing that act is going to yield great benefit. And so that's step 4, is uncovering the insecurity. And then that leads into step 5. And my top takeaway is, it's the learning, or the light at the end of the tunnel. I learned that the more I avoid external education, the more I actually learn, but the more I learn about myself and how to move forward in a way that best serves me and my goals and my purpose in my life, professionally and personally. And so, again, you got to shine that light, and you got to peel the layers back. And once you do, you have the decision to make how you want to move forward. And I'm going to do another episode of steps to change that I've been learning. And there's 6 steps that I've kind of narrowed it down, and a lot of the other steps will kind of fit in these categories. But my main takeaway of what I've been learning with this is, I don't need external knowledge. That is just a shield to cover up me facing myself, facing my emotions, facing my addictions, facing all of the, the vices I have that distracts me, makes me think I'm busy. You could think of people in your life that are always busy. They always got things to do, but how productive are they? And I just realized that I was giving myself all these tasks to stay busy because, they were in good intention. I'm educating myself. I'm trying to map out my business. I'm trying to do this plan and make this and that, but I wasn't taking action. And now that I've taken a step back, I've had to reflect on myself. That's where the magic happens, is really when you can uncover who you are and why you do the things you do. Your personality is made up of your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's the day life that you live in and how you see that life. And in order to change, you have to recognize who you are as the operating system. Because once you can do that, you can use your mind to start reprogramming your body and your mind. Like I said before, when we get into our 30s, 95% of how we operate is a subconscious program. And in order to change that program, you have to do the inner work. Because at the end of the day, your external world is a reflection of your inner world. And so my takeaway of all this is what sometimes makes us feel safe can also be the exact thing that is enabling us to play small, to say things like it must be nice, or to resent people, or to be jealous, or to be spiteful, or to project our fears onto others. It's a simple concept of the mirroring effect. If you can understand that what you put out in the reality in which you live is just a manifestation of who you are on the inside, you can take accountability from there. That's everything. Consciousness and acceptance. Because when you have those pieces, it's easier to make the decision to move forward, even though it's going to be difficult. So for me, I've really taken a step back. And by taking a step back, it's allowed me to take 2 more steps forward. And so at the end of the day, I just encourage you to think of all the things that you do, maybe consciously or unconsciously, that feel good, feel safe, feel comfortable. And really, really ask yourself and audit if those decisions are serving you. And if they're not, go back to these steps. Number 1, discovering the root cause. Number 2, the compound effect, figuring out other events that happened after that to the point you're at now that just made this problem even larger. Number 3, gain clarity around these events. Step 4, uncover the insecurity. And it may not be easy. There may be a lot of resistance to even do step 1. For me, journaling, meditating, inner reflection was beyond difficult and challenging because that was my ego trying to protect me. Though the ego is super smart. It's unneeded in certain aspects of our life, but it's super smart. It's going to do everything it can to prevent you from shining that light in there. And then step 5, the learning, the light at the end of the tunnel, seeing what you can learn from these experiences, from this insecurity. What was it trying to teach you? And for me, I mentioned this journaling exercise I did actually today, and that moment in my junior year of high school and thinking about that senior project, the learning I took away from that, it's not, the main takeaway I have was, what makes us feel safe often can be the exact problem that enables us. But the learning I took away from all this is the focus yields the results. Because I was in this position of finishing up high school, working a full-time job, and going after my dream, the job and the dream took over, mainly the job because it funded the dream, but the dream was the main focus. And I got awesome results as a byproduct of that focus. And I realized the reason why I was scared and doubting myself of that senior project was because my focus wasn't in school. I did the bare minimum to get by because that was my agreement with my parents, to get good grades, work hard, and go after what you want in your life as long as you're working hard. So that's what I did. But now I realize the fear, the doubt came from that lack of focus in that area. It didn't mean much to me, but I didn't face that fear. I didn't face it. And it just kept going with me subconsciously in my BMX career, in my relationships, in my education moving forward, which is a whole nother story. High school dropout turned, whatever you want to call me today, helping people take care of their health and, collaborating with medical professionals and just speaking on stages at medical conferences and all these things. Like,
it's phenomenal. But my intention and my focus was 100% there. That stemmed from a brain tumor diagnosis at a young age. But had my focus been improving my skills in school to accomplish that senior project, I wonder what would have changed in my past. And I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole to go down. But the main learning I had was where your focus goes, that is what's going to yield you the most results. Or I should say where the majority of your focus goes. So I really just encourage people to do the inner work. My coach that's helping me through this process, we were just talking today, and I was just like, man, like, I'm literally just doing my best to surrender to the process, to trust the process, and to not go back into the temptations of my old self, my old state of being. And I notice the more I do that, the more I see the opportunity to succeed. The more I see the clarity that is helping me understand the fears and the doubts are just a past limiting belief that stayed with me. And so these 5 steps, they're so simple, but if you sit down and you give yourself some time and an open heart and open mind, and you don't make it right or wrong, you don't make it anything but what it is. Just ask yourself, step 1, what is the root cause of this problem? Step 2, what are other events that compounded this effect moving forward to now? Step 3, look for the clarity. What are the meanings? What are the beliefs? What are the triggers of that problem? Step 4, uncover the insecurity. What is the limiting belief? What is the fear? What is it that your ego didn't want you to face, that you didn't want other people to see about yourself? And step 5, what is the learning? What is the light at the end of the tunnel? And, a little pro tip is, I was saying, is like, think of the things that you feel best at, that you feel safe, that you feel comfortable, that are easy, that don't require change, that don't require effort. Those are usually the things that are enabling the problem you're experiencing. So with that being said, I believe next episode I'll be talking about steps to change from my experience, my perspective, my education, my learning, my, helping others through this process. And I hope you guys really, really listen to this and apply it, because for me, the takeaways, the changes in my life, the shifts have been profound, and that's all I want for you.